OpenAI and Anthropic raise billions from Wall Street to force their models into enterprise infrastructure. Coinbase fires 14% of its staff to build one-person AI teams. And a new study shows 81% of CEOs fear losing their jobs over botched AI rollouts. Welcome to today's Daily Rundown. I am your host, Etienne Newman, Senior Software Engineer from Université Laval, based in Calgary, Alberta. Today, we perform a forensic autopsy on the enterprise invasion, this Tuesday, May 5th, 2026. The artificial intelligence arms race has shifted from the laboratory directly into the boardroom. The barrier to entry is no longer building the smartest model. It is integrating that intelligence into messy, legacy corporate workflows. To solve this capability overhang, OpenAI and Anthropic have both announced massive, multi-billion-dollar joint ventures with heavyweights like Blackstone and Bain Capital, effectively creating their own private equity-backed consulting firms. But this integration is causing massive structural friction. Brian Armstrong has just laid off 700 employees at Coinbase, restructuring the company around one-person teams empowered by AI. Meanwhile, the White House is pushing for the power to pre-review all frontier models before public release, and Google DeepMind employees in the UK are unionizing specifically to block military AI contracts. But before we dive into the data, I have a brief strategic request. The algorithms governing the app you are listening on right now dictate what intelligence reaches your feed. To ensure you never miss our highest-rated episodes and most critical forensic autopsies, the simplest thing you can do is hit that follow or subscribe button. It is a completely free action that takes just 1 second, but it is the single most effective way to help us scale this independent research and improve the show. Please take a moment on your app right now and hit follow. Thank you. Today's episode is brought to you by Area. When frontier labs raise billions just to integrate their tech into enterprise workflows, your organization needs flawless technical intelligence. A special thank you to Area for sponsoring today's forensic briefing. Let's unravel the day. Before we begin today's briefing, a note for the brands listening. If you want to reach the true architects of the AI revolution, the technical leaders actually building the stack, not just the tourists, DJAMGAMIND offers select premium partnership opportunities. Let us position your product directly in front of the ultimate technical buyer. Visit jamgamind.com/partners.
Welcome back to another deep dive. And, as always, we want you to consider yourself the critical third mind in the room with us today.
Absolutely. Glad you're here with us.
Yeah, because today we are acting as your forensic business strategists and digital rights advocates. We are doing a complete holistic autopsy on the explosive tech and business news crossing the DJAMGAMIND network for today, May 5th, 2026.
And it is a wild news day. I mean, the market is shifting completely.
It really is. Usually when we talk about a massive technological breakthrough, there is this underlying assumption that the hardest part of the whole endeavor is actually just building the thing, right? Like, think about the Apollo mission.
Right. The engineering is the focus.
Exactly. You spend a decade engineering the Saturn V rocket, you successfully fire it into space, and you land on the moon. The building is the mission. The engineering is the finish line.
We definitely have a bias toward the science, I think. We like to tell ourselves that once the raw physics or the core math is solved, well, the rest of society just naturally reshapes itself around the new invention.
But then you look at what is actively happening across the global business landscape today, and you realize that building the smartest AI model in the world was just the opening act.
Yeah, just the warm-up.
Right. The actual war, like the messy, chaotic, multi-trillion-dollar war, is figuring out how to forcefully install these genius-level models into the incredibly stubborn, messy legacy plumbing of global corporations.
It is the absolute definition of an infrastructural nightmare. I mean, the friction isn't in the neural networks anymore. It's in the deployment.
Exactly. And that is what we are dissecting today, this massive paradigm shift that people are starting to call the enterprise invasion.
I like that term. It fits.
It really does. We've got a massive stack of sources to go through with you. We're talking market analysis on massive private equity moves, global CEO sentiment surveys, national security memos, and reports on the shifting corporate structures of companies like Coinbase.
Because building artificial general intelligence is a nice academic goal.
Mm-hmm.
But monetizing it, that actually means ripping out the floorboards of the Fortune 500.
And ripping out those floorboards is causing a profound level of panic at the top. I mean, if you want to understand the enterprise invasion, you really have to look at the psychology of the people who are being invaded.
The C-suite paranoia is very real right now.
Oh, totally.
Ugh.
Which brings us to this new global study from DJAMGAMIND and the Harris Poll. They surveyed 900 global CEOs, and the numbers here are completely staggering.
Yeah, the data is pretty wild.
Right. 81% of these chief executives fear that failing their AI deployments will cost them their jobs this year, not at the end of their 5-year term, this year.
Wow, this year.
Yeah. And furthermore, 75% believe a fellow CEO in their network will be ousted over a bungled rollout. Plus, 62% say they are facing relentless active pressure from their boards to just deliver measurable financial outcomes from all this AI investment.
Well, what you're seeing there is the precise quantification of executive terror. I mean, it is being driven by a phenomenon known in the industry as capability overhang.
Okay, walk us through capability overhang. What does that actually look like inside a regular company?
So capability overhang means the sheer intelligence of the technology is vastly outperforming our organizational capacity to actually use it safely.
Right. The tech is smarter than the company.
Exactly. The frontier models right now, whether it's OpenAI's latest architecture or Anthropic's Claude, are undeniably powerful. I mean, they can write complex software, they can analyze millions of rows of supply chain data, draft legal strategies, but having the raw capability sitting on a server somewhere is not the same as having operational trust in the boardroom.
Which is why they're hesitating.
Yeah. That same DJAMGAMIND study notes that 34% of CEOs outright refuse to let AI make a final business decision without a human signing off on it.
Florian Duetto, the CEO of DJAMGAMIND, really nailed the core of this. He pointed out that every single enterprise on Earth basically has access to powerful AI right now. It's just a commodity.
Right. Anyone can buy it.
Exactly. The differentiator, the thing that actually makes a company valuable, is whether they can turn that raw computational power into reliable daily business decisions without destroying their brand in the process.
And that is the cognitive dissonance keeping these CEOs awake at night. They are terrified of being left behind by their competitors, obviously, but they are equally terrified of letting the machine actually drive the company.
Yeah, because if an AI hallucinates, say, a predatory pricing strategy, or accidentally violates a massive European compliance law by mishandling customer data, the board of directors doesn't fire the AI model.
No, they fire the CEO.
Exactly. But wait, I have to ask, isn't that just standard executive FOMO disguised as strategy? Like, it sounds like every Fortune 500 company just went out and bought a Formula One car, but they only have dirt roads to drive it on. Is this paranoia actually justified?
That is a perfect way to look at it. And driving a Formula One car on a dirt road doesn't just mean you go a little slower than you'd like. I mean, it means the suspension snaps, you hit a boulder, and you totally destroy a multi-million-dollar asset.
Right. It's actively dangerous to the car.
Exactly. The dirt road in this scenario is a company's legacy data. If you plug a genius-level AI into a 15-year-old corporate database that is full of errors, duplicate files, and unsecured customer information, the AI is just going to process that garbage at the speed of light.
Oh, man. Speed running a disaster.
Right. So over 50% of the executives surveyed are actively delaying their AI rollouts because of regulatory and legal risks. They fundamentally don't know how to trace the AI's output back to a source document.
So you have this massive bottleneck. The AI labs have spent tens of billions of dollars building these digital supercomputers, but the executives are just absolutely terrified to plug them in.
Which brings us to the most aggressive pivot in Silicon Valley right now.
Yeah, the Wall Street deals.
Right. The AI labs realize they can't just sell software licenses anymore. They have to literally hold the hands of these terrified executives. And they are charging a massive premium for the privilege.
The announcements that dropped this week are just unbelievable. I mean, Anthropic announced a $1.5 billion joint venture with Blackstone, Hellman and Friedman, and Goldman Sachs. The stated goal is to create an AI-native enterprise services firm specifically to target mid-sized companies.
Which is a huge shift.
It is. And practically in the same breath, Bloomberg drops a report that OpenAI is raising $4 billion at a $10 billion valuation for an entirely new entity literally called the Deployment Company. And that one is backed by TPG, Brookfield, Bain, and SoftBank.
Look, this is a brilliant, entirely logistical military maneuver. By partnering with the biggest private equity giants on Earth, these frontier AI labs are essentially creating their own mega consulting firms.
Wow, yeah.
Think about how private equity works. A firm like Blackstone or Bain owns hundreds, sometimes thousands, of portfolio companies. They own logistics providers, HVAC repair conglomerates, regional supply chain vendors.
And those regional supply chain vendors definitely do not have a team of prompt engineers from MIT sitting in the back office.
Exactly. They have incredibly thin margins and outdated tech.
Yeah.
So Anthropic and OpenAI are creating dedicated, highly paid strike teams. These deployment companies will march directly into those legacy private equity businesses and forcefully integrate the AI into their daily workflows.
But wait, I mean, these are supposed to be frontier research labs. Their stated charters are all about achieving artificial general intelligence and solving the mysteries of the universe. Why are they suddenly pivoting to act like high-priced McKinsey consultants optimizing an HVAC company's routing software?
Well, because the bottleneck to profitability isn't the intelligence of the model anymore. The friction is the enterprise itself. You can have the smartest, most capable AI ever created, but if a mid-sized logistics company in Ohio can't figure out how to plug it into their specific 2008 inventory management software, you don't make a dime.
Right.
The infrastructure gap between the lab and the real world is just too wide. They have to become consultants because otherwise the technology just sits on the shelf. This massive shift proves just how difficult corporate integration truly is.
When the world's top AI labs are raising billions just to figure out how to install their models into legacy businesses, it is clear that deploying AI at the enterprise level requires more than just an API key. It requires management infrastructure. We want to thank our sponsor, AIRA, for making today's briefing possible. ARA provides the enterprise-grade AI management platform that organizations need to turn raw compute into measurable, secure workflow automation. You can find their link in the show notes.
And that transition taking raw compute and turning it into actual workflow automation is exactly where the human cost of this invasion starts to become very, very real.
Right, because once these deployment strike teams actually succeed in rewiring the corporate infrastructure, what happens to the human beings who used to do that work?
It's the multi-billion-dollar question.
Exactly. And to see the reality of that, we really only have to look at what Brian Armstrong is doing at Coinbase right now. He just announced they're cutting roughly 700 employees, which is 14% of their entire staff.
13% is a massive cut.
It is. But if you read the filings, the stated goal isn't just a defensive cost-cutting measure. It is a fundamental restructuring of the company, and it's explicitly tied to AI tools.
What we are watching at Coinbase is the aggressive flattening of the traditional corporate org chart. I mean, they are mandating a strict maximum of 5 management layers below the CEO.
Just 5 layers?
Yep. And they're forcing leaders to expand their scope, managing upwards of 15 direct reports. But the crucial shift, the real paradigm breaker here, is the mandate that managers must be individual contributors.
No more just managing.
Right. You can no longer just oversee other people's work. You have to actively produce code or product yourself.
And the mechanism allowing them to do that is what they're calling one-person teams.
Yes. The whole concept of the one-person team is about using AI tools to blend entirely different skill sets like engineering, graphic design, product management, and quality assurance into a single human employee.
So the AI is your staff.
Basically. The AI essentially acts as your junior developer, your design assistant, and your copywriter. It theoretically allows one human being to execute an entire product lifecycle from concept all the way to launch.
But let's look at the financials here through our forensic lens, because Coinbase is paying out $50 to $60 million in severance packages to execute this. So are one-person AI teams a genuine revolution in how software is built, or is this just Brian Armstrong using AI as a very shiny, investor-friendly excuse to execute a classic crypto winter layoff cycle?
Well, historically, corporations absolutely use new technology as a smokescreen for financial layoffs. That's just a fact. But if you look at the structural mechanics of what Coinbase is demanding, this really looks like a genuine paradigm shift.
Really? How so?
They aren't just doing the same work with fewer people. By collapsing middle management and forcing cross-functional AI integration, they are trying to prove that AI-enabled leanness fundamentally changes the actual velocity of a company.
But building software at that velocity, with AI constantly generating code, rendering design assets, running testing environments, that requires an unimaginable amount of physical computing power.
Raw compute.
Right, raw compute.
Right.
The actual silicon processing power required to make the math happen. And all these hypothetical one-person software teams are slamming right into a massive physical bottleneck.
Because the models don't exist in the ether. They live on physical silicon chips inside massive data centers. And the global supply chain for those chips is currently buckling under the weight of this AI surge.
Which totally explains the massive hardware pivots we are seeing today. Apple is in early talks with Samsung executives, actually just toured Samsung's $17 billion plant in Texas, and they are also talking to Intel for US-based chip fabrication.
They're trying to diversify fast.
Yeah, because the reason is TSMC, the company in Taiwan that currently handles roughly 75% of the world's advanced chip fabrication, is simply maxed out. The AI surge has eaten all their capacity.
And securing enough silicon isn't just a logistical headache for Apple's supply chain either.
Yeah.
There is a deep, highly sensitive geopolitical layer to all this.
The national security aspect.
Exactly. The models being produced on these chips are becoming so incredibly capable that they are triggering alarm bells at the absolute highest levels of national security.
The perfect example of this is the Mythos scare. Anthropic recently developed a new internal model called Mythos, and they made the totally unprecedented decision to withhold it from the public entirely. The reason they gave is that Mythos was simply too good at finding software security flaws.
And specifically, zero-day vulnerabilities.
Right. Explain what that means for our listener.
Sure. These are critical flaws in software that the creator doesn't even know about yet, meaning they have 0 days to fix it before it can be exploited by hackers. If an AI can autonomously identify and exploit zero-day vulnerabilities in massive systems, well, it fundamentally changes the global risk profile.
It's not just a chatbot anymore.
Exactly. It stops being a helpful business tool for summarizing your emails and becomes a highly potent piece of digital munitions.
And Washington has absolutely noticed. I mean, the Trump administration, with Susie Wiles and Scott Bessent taking over AI policy, has completely abandoned their earlier hands-off, deregulatory approach.
Yeah, that was a huge pivot.
Massive. They are now floating an executive order to create a working group that will pre-review new AI models before they are ever released to the public. And the U.S. Commerce Department is already gaining early access to unreleased models from OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, Microsoft, and xAI specifically for national security testing.
And noticeably, Meta is absent from that testing group.
They are, which is interesting. But regardless, the inclusion of the Commerce Department running aggressive red team testing for cyber, biological, and national security risks signals that the classic Silicon Valley era of move fast and break things is officially over for the frontier labs.
The government is demanding a permanent seat at the deployment table.
But wait, how does a government working group effectively pre-review a system that is constantly evolving and learning? It's like the FDA trying to approve a new drug, but the pill actively changes its chemical makeup while it's sitting in the petri dish. Doesn't the adversarial testing process itself alter the model's behavior?
That is the exact paradox regulators are struggling with right now. You can benchmark an AI system on a Tuesday, certify it as completely safe, and by Thursday, through further adversarial testing or just ingesting a new data set, it has developed a completely novel capability.
So the test is already outdated.
Right. The government isn't auditing a static piece of code. They're trying to regulate a moving target. And the reality is the only way to effectively monitor a system like that is to have constant embedded government access to the core infrastructure itself.
So the AI models are forcefully invading the enterprise, the government is forcefully invading the AI labs, and meanwhile, the actual human beings building these systems are starting to rebel.
The digital rights aspect of all this is really bubbling up.
It is. Over in London, Google DeepMind UK workers have just voted to unionize with the CWU and unite the union.
Which is a direct, visceral reaction to the exact national security integration we were just talking about.
Right. Impartially speaking, the catalyst for this specific unionization push was Alphabet dropping its long-standing corporate pledge against using AI for weapons, which was immediately followed by a reported deal with the Pentagon.
And the workers' demands are crystal clear.
Yeah. They want Google to exit its cloud and AI contracts with the Israeli military. They want full transparency on how their engineering work is being deployed globally. And they want ironclad assurances regarding automation-driven layoffs.
It is such a fascinating contrast in the tech ecosystem right now. I mean, on one side, you have the rank-and-file engineers attempting grassroots labor organizing to exert some form of moral control over the outputs of their daily labor.
Yeah, they are deeply grappling with the geopolitical realities of what they have built.
And then you look just a few tax brackets up, and you have the executives at the top fighting an entirely different kind of war.
Oh, the Silicon Valley courtroom drama, it is wild. While the London workers are organizing, we have this incredible, bitter trial playing out in Oakland between Elon Musk and OpenAI.
Right, over the fundamental structure of the company.
Yeah. Greg Brockman, the president of OpenAI, is currently on the stand being grilled over his staggering $30 billion equity stake, which, by the way, makes a standard tech 401k look like a rounding error.
Just a bit, yeah.
They are digging into his personal financial links to Sam Altman, scrutinizing joint investments in companies like Cerebras and Helion Energy, and Musk is seeking $150 billion in damages. Oh, and right next door to all this, Meta is actively burning $125 to $145 billion in what Wall Street is terrifiedly calling an AI capex furnace.
A capital expenditure furnace.
Yeah.
They're just shoveling billions of dollars into buying GPUs and building data centers, basically trying to outspend the competition until someone goes broke.
It is insane.
It is the ultimate display of cynical capitalistic warfare. The sums of money are almost incomprehensible to a normal human being.
And the juxtaposition is just wild for the listener to consider. You have engineers in London fighting an existential moral battle over global warfare and the future of human labor, while just a few tax brackets up, the founders who hired them are fighting a $150 billion soap opera over who gets to keep the golden goose.
But here's the ultimate twist, right? That soap opera is playing out while the golden goose is actively figuring out how to lay its own eggs.
This is where we need to pull the lens back and look at the exponential future. We've spent this entire time talking about the enterprise invasion happening right now. Private equity forcing AI into logistics companies, Coinbase firing managers to build one-person teams. But what happens when the AI models no longer need human engineers to build the next version?
Well, Jack Clark, who's one of the co-founders of Anthropic, just published a fascinating piece. He's outlining a 60% plus probability that AI systems will be fully capable of trading their own successors before 2029.
Wait, that is less than 3 years from now?
Exactly.
Someone who started college when AI could barely write a basic Hello World program will graduate into a world where the AI is entirely self-replicating.
And Clark isn't just making a sci-fi guess here. He is actually tracking the public benchmark data. The acceleration is undeniable.
The progression in the data is terrifyingly fast. Like, look at the METR benchmark. This tests an AI's ability to handle independent agentic tasks without human intervention. In 2022, an AI could successfully handle a complex task that took about 30 seconds.
Right, very basic.
Yeah. But today, in 2026, it can autonomously execute a plan that takes 12 straight hours. And by the end of this year, they project the models will handle 100-hour autonomous runs.
Then you combine that with the SWE Bench coding scores. SWE Bench isn't a multiple choice test. It is a real-world gauntlet where the AI is handed an actual complex software bug from a real GitHub repository and told, fix this with zero human help.
A completely autonomous fix.
Exactly. Claude 2 was scoring about 2% on that test. The new Mythos preview model scored nearly 94%. That jump happened in under 3 years. When an AI can reliably write architecture, debug legacy code, and run quality assurance testing at a 94% success rate, it can absolutely be tasked with building the next generation of its own core software. It just removes the human cognitive bottleneck from the research and development cycle.
But again, even a self-improving AI requires physical compute.
No.
Where is this self-training superintelligence actually going to live? I mean, the land grabs for data centers are getting incredibly hostile.
Yeah, power and space are the new oil.
So Peter Thiel just led a $140 million Series B investment in a company called Panthalassa. And they aren't building data centers in Texas or Virginia. They're building 85-meter steel nodes that bob in the open ocean.
Ocean compute nodes.
Yes. These nodes are powered entirely by the kinetic motion of the ocean waves. They naturally use the freezing depths of the seawater for liquid cooling, which completely eliminates the millions of dollars usually spent on air conditioning for server farms. And they transmit all their data back to shore via SpaceX's Starlink. They literally steer themselves to avoid storms. No engines, no human crew.
It is a brilliant, completely autonomous solution to the physical constraints of the AI boom. I mean, the power generation is free, the liquid cooling is free, and it skirts local zoning laws.
So think about the absolute wild trajectory we've drawn today for you. If an AI tool allows Brian Armstrong to create a one-person team today at Coinbase, what happens when the AI is writing its own code and training its own successor on a completely autonomous steel island bobbing in the middle of the Pacific Ocean?
It means the fundamental nature of the global enterprise has permanently changed. If we look at the entire autopsy of today's news, the takeaway is clear. The era of simply building smart models is over. That was the easy part.
Right.
We are now deeply entrenched in the deployment era. It is a messy, multi-billion-dollar war being waged by Wall Street private equity firms and Silicon Valley frontier labs to systematically rewire corporate infrastructure, national security protocols, and human labor markets. The friction isn't the technology anymore. The friction is us.
And that is exactly what we want you to take away from this deep dive. Look around your own industry. Look at the software you are forced to use, the hierarchy of your management, and the panic in the decisions your company is making today. Are you suffering from capability overhang? Are you being forced to drive a Formula One car on a dirt road?
Because the landscape is shifting under our feet vastly faster than human regulations can keep up.
We talked about Coinbase flattening its structure to create one-person teams equipped with AI. If Jack Clark is right, and AI can successfully train its own successors by 2029, how long until we see the first billion-dollar zero-person enterprise? And more importantly, if AI replaces the workforce, who will that zero-person company actually be selling to?
That concludes our forensic briefing for May 5th. The strategic signal for today is the friction of implementation. It is one thing for an AI model to ace a benchmark. It is entirely another to deploy it safely into a massive logistics network or a highly regulated financial institution. The fact that Anthropic and OpenAI are raising billions to build their own consulting branches proves that the capability overhang is real. Companies have more intelligence at their fingertips than they know what to do with. And as we saw with the Coinbase layoffs, figuring out the right corporate structure for the AI age is going to be incredibly painful. If you want to own your infrastructure instead of being managed by it, check the show notes for the AI Executive Toolkit. And as a special bonus for our community, we have exclusive discount codes for Google Workspace and my AI and Machine Learning Tutor Pro apps. You can find the email address to claim those directly in the show notes below. This episode was sponsored by Airia. Subscribe to the DJAMGAMIND channel on Apple Podcasts to always listen completely ads-free. I am Etienne Newman. Stay sharp and keep unraveling the future. And before you go, if your company is building the tools that power the workflows we talked about today, I'd love to showcase them to this audience. We don't just run ads, we build technical simulations that prove your value. Let's build something together. Visit jamgamind.com/partners to get started. Until next time, keep building.